Welcome back to Divinely Encountered, where we explore the miraculous, the supernatural, and the undeniable ways God works in our lives. Today, I'm sharing the incredible story of Joel, a young man whose life took a shocking turn at just 18 years old. Facing a daunting 3 to 15-year sentence in a maximum security prison, Joel's story could have been one of despair. But instead, it became the stage for something unbelievable. Joel says he lived with an angel, sent by God in bodily form. Let's start at the beginning. Growing up, Joel had a loving family and every opportunity for success. His parents provided for him, his community supported him, and he had everything he needed to build a bright future. But like so many of us, he longed for connection, love, and a sense of belonging. That yearning eventually led him to the Grateful Dead family, a subculture rooted in the counterculture movement of the 1960s. At first, it seemed like a perfect fit: music, freedom, and community. But beneath the surface was a darker reality, a world influenced by harmful substances, New Age beliefs, and spiritual experimentation. Joel found himself drawn into this lifestyle, believing he found connection and fulfillment. What began with experimentation soon spiraled into dependency and eventually illegal activities. In 1998, at just 18 years old, his decisions caught up with him. He was sentenced to 3 to 15 years in prison. It was his first time in trouble, and the reality of where his choices had taken him hit hard. Prison was brutal. Surrounded by hardened criminals, murderers, thieves, and gang members, Joel felt completely out of place. By his second year, Joel was starting to hit his breaking point. After a particularly tense exchange with another inmate, he felt more distraught than ever. For the first time in his life, he cried out to God. Joel wasn't a believer at the time. Although he'd grown up reading the Bible, he didn't know Christ. He believed all religions led to the same God and that supernatural experiences could be accessed through illegal substances and practices like astral projection and out-of-body experiences. But in that moment of desperation, something broke inside him. Joel found himself praying, a broken, raw kind of prayer. Through tears, he said,
God, I can't do this anymore on my own. I can't relate to these people who've done terrible things. Murderers, thieves, and people who thrive on hurting others. I don't belong here. I need someone I can connect with who understands me.
After praying, Joel calmed down and went about his day, unaware that his heartfelt plea had already set something incredible in motion. A few weeks later, Joel walked out onto the prison yard and noticed something that immediately caught his attention: a man juggling a soccer ball. Soccer had been a passion for Joel since childhood, and seeing this man skillfully juggling the ball felt almost like a little piece of home. Intrigued, Joel walked over and struck up a conversation. The man introduced himself as Cedric. He was from Kingston, Jamaica, and Joel was amazed when Cedric casually told him that his mom had babysat Bob Marley's kids. Joel thought,
Now this guy's cool. He loves soccer. He likes Bob Marley. I can relate to him.
But as Joel got to know Cedric, he realized there was something different about him. Cedric radiated a kind of peace and love that stood out in the harsh, violent prison environment. He was passionate about Jesus Christ and began sharing his faith with Joel. At first, Joel wasn't interested. He had no desire to hear about the Bible or Jesus. But Cedric wasn't pushy. His patience, kindness, and authenticity drew Joel in. Over time, Joel began to listen and see that Cedric's faith was real. One evening, as they were walking through a dangerous section of the prison, Joel noticed a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Cedric's demeanor changed. His face turned serious and tears streamed down his face. Cedric began speaking, not in English but in a language Joel didn't recognize. Cedric's voice grew louder, capturing the attention of those around them. Nearby, a devout Muslim inmate who was fluent in Aramaic began running back and forth. Tears welled in his eyes as he exclaimed,
Oh dear, he's speaking Aramaic. He's speaking Aramaic. He's saying God is walking among you.
The man ran to Cedric, fell to his knees, and handed him his beanie, declaring,
I want to serve the God you serve.
In that moment, the devout Muslim surrendered his life to Jesus Christ. Joel couldn't believe what he was witnessing. Cedric didn't know Aramaic, yet God had used him to deliver a message so powerful that led someone to surrender their life to Jesus Christ. This was Joel's first encounter with the overwhelming power of the Holy Spirit. From that moment on, Joel began to spend more time with Cedric. Together, they led Bible studies, prayed, and fasted. But the supernatural didn't stop there. Joel witnessed event after event that left him in awe. One day, Cedric began tracing a circle in the dirt of the prison yard as he prayed in tongues. Joel watched quietly and curiously, thinking.
Here we go again.
Joel looked up, and that's when he saw a golden eagle hovering above them in the sky.
Look, everyone, there's an eagle!
Joel shouted in amazement. When others looked up, the eagle flew away. But Joel knew in his spirit that something profound was happening. About an hour later, two men walked onto the prison yard with Bibles. One was a young man with a long sentence for terrible crimes. The other, an inmate Joel didn't recognize. Although the yard was massive, the two men walked without hesitation to the exact center of the circle Cedric had traced earlier. Right there, in front of everyone, they dropped to their knees and began praying to God. Joel couldn't believe it.
How did they know to go there? What drew them into the circle? Am I losing my mind?
He wondered. Day after day, Cedric's presence brought miracles and signs that deepened Joel's faith. As Joel's parole hearing approached, fear crept in, and he began to panic. Almost no one in the prison was being released early, and Joel was convinced he would be stuck for years. He turned to Cedric and confessed.
I'm doomed. They're not going to let me out.
But Cedric wouldn't let him give in to despair. With a sharp rebuke, Cedric said,
Joey, have I taught you nothing? Have I taught you nothing at all?
He motioned for Joel to follow him to the prison yard.
Come with me, Joey, come.
Out in the yard, Cedric sat Joel down and began to speak with conviction. He rebuked Joel's unbelief, reminding him of God's power, and spoke of Joel's future with confidence.
You're going to be released from this prison,
he said.
You're going to preach the gospel all over the world. You're going to train people and churches.
And as Cedric spoke, the most magnificent and scary thing happened. Thunder and lightning filled the sky, striking down in perfect rhythm with Cedric's movements. It was as if the heavens themselves were responding to his words. Joel was shaken, said,
Whatever you say.
and got out of there. One morning, Joel woke up early for the daily count. As usual, he headed over to Cedric's bed to get him for breakfast. But when he arrived, Cedric's bed was empty, and all of his belongings were gone. There was no trace of him at all. Confused, Joel went to the guards. He'd always had a good rapport with them, especially since he'd spent time teaching other inmates how to read and helping them prepare for their GEDs. But this time, when Joel asked where Cedric was, the guards brushed him off and didn't give any answers. The other inmates assumed he got deported. Joel couldn't be sure, but with no other explanation, he let it go, for the moment. 2 months later, Joel went before the parole board. Out of 105 men, he was the only one granted parole. As he sat in that room, he remembered everything Cedric had told him and felt the undeniable presence of God. During the 2-month wait for his release, Joel spent time reflecting. Up until this point, he had thought of Cedric as a person God had placed in his life, someone to help guide him along the path. But one morning, that changed. Joel woke up and sat upright in his bed, glancing down the row of sleeping inmates. Everyone else was asleep, and he thought to himself,
Why am I the only one awake to go to breakfast?
Then, something completely unexpected happened. Joel glanced behind him and saw himself still lying in bed. He realized he wasn't in his physical body anymore. He was in his spiritual body, made of an opalescent, shining, bright light. And standing at the foot of his bed was Cedric. But this wasn't the Cedric Joel had known. This Cedric was radiant, standing somewhere between 7 and 9 feet tall. His body shimmered with the same brilliant light as Joel's, only brighter. He held a Bible in his hands that glowed with the same brilliant substance. Cedric looked at Joel and smiled warmly. Without speaking a word, he communicated directly to Joel's mind.
I told you, Joey, I told you.
Joel took in the scene around him, observing the glowing environment and his own physical body still asleep in bed. Then the experience ended, and Joel sat up in bed, fully awake and aware. He knew without a doubt that he had just experienced a heavenly encounter. To this day, Joel reflects on that moment and the questions it left him with. Who was Cedric? Was he an angel? Could he have been Jesus in human form? After all, everyone in the prison had seen Cedric. He had lived with Joel in bodily form for 2 months. Joel firmly believes, as do others who've heard his story, that Cedric was an angel, sent on divine assignment by God in response to Joel's desperate prayer. And those supernatural experiences with Cedric set the course of Joel's life with a passion for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, Joel's living out Cedric's prophecy, teaching and sharing about Jesus with people around the world. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to hit the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe and share this video so that together we can deepen our faith and celebrate the powerful love God has for us in this life and beyond. If you've experienced a divine encounter that you'd like to share, email your story to share at divinelyencountered.com. Let's continue spreading His light together. May God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.